Following the destruction of the new Sith in the 7th Battle of Ruusan, Darth Bane, the last surviving Sith Lord, reorganized the Sith under what he called the Rule of Two. As any Star Wars fan could probably tell you, this rule decreed that there were only to be two Sith at any given time, a master and an apprentice. Many Sith had a bit of a distaste for this rule, as you might imagine. Darth Tenebrous, Darth Sidious, Darth Tyrannus, for example, all bent or even broke the Rule of Two in various ways. On the surface, this may seem like a smart move. After all, aren't 3 or more Sith better than 2? In reality though, the Rule of Two was actually very important to the continued survival of the Sith. In this video, we'll be discussing why.
Attention, Sergeant on deck!
2 there should be, no more, no less. One to embody power, the other to crave it. That was the full text of the Rule of Two, as laid down by Darth Bane in 1000 BBY. It would go on to be the foundation of the new Order of the Sith Lords, Bane's replacement for the now extinct Brotherhood of Darkness, the previous Sith Order. This Rule of Two is regularly derided by Star Wars fans who consider it foolish for the Sith to have given up their empires and armies in favor of operating in the shadows. History shows that the Sith were capable of raising whole armies of Darksiders, sometimes even matching the Jedi Order in terms of numbers. What could 2 Sith do that 10,000 couldn't? Well, the answer to that question is survive, but we'll get to that in a bit. Before we do, we should clarify that the basic idea of Bane's Rule of Two actually existed side by side with those ancient Sith orders. Even when there were vast numbers of Sith or even dozens of Sith Lords, almost every Sith Order had 2 that ruled above all others. The first Sith Empire followed this tradition with the Dark Lord of the Sith and their apprentice, or Shadowhand, ruling over all the other Sith Lords. Subsequent Sith Orders followed this pattern. The Brotherhood of the Sith was ruled by Exar Kun and Ulic Qel-Droma, while Revan's Sith Empire was ruled by Darth Revan and Darth Malak. In both of those examples, the ruling Sith took the roles of master and apprentice, respectively. In fact, Darth Bane was inspired by the teachings of Revan when he concocted his Rule of Two. In Revan's empire, there were many fallen Jedi and lesser Sith at the command of the Dark Lord and his apprentice, but there were only ever 2 full Sith Lords. Remember, Sith Lords were a specific category of Sith, the apex of the Sith Orders. Limiting their numbers was nothing new. While Revan's empire only had 2, for example, the original Sith Empire only had 12 Sith Lords. The title of Sith Lord was supposed to belong only to the best and brightest the dark side had to offer. However, in Bane's time, that hadn't been the case for nearly 1,000 years. Bane became a Sith at the end of the new Sith Wars, a 1,000-year clash between the Jedi Order and the new Sith. These new Sith were starkly different from the Sith Empires of old. From the very beginning, they were intensely fractious, and they battled each other nearly as often as they battled the Jedi. For centuries, there were hundreds of Sith Lords all over the galaxy, each with their own followings of lesser Sith and dark Jedi. They were successful at tearing the Republic apart and conquering vast tracts of space, but they were slowed at every turn by constant infighting. Sith Lords plotted and even waged war against each other. Groups of lesser Sith banded together and murdered their masters, becoming self-proclaimed Sith Lords themselves. It was total chaos. In 1100 BBY, the new Sith were on the verge of completely destroying the Republic. They were on Coruscant's doorstep with more than enough might to take the galactic capital itself. But at the last minute, the leading Sith Lords of the time turned on each other, wasting their strength in a fruitless civil war. This saved the Republic and allowed the Jedi to push the Sith all the way back to the Rim for a time. In response to this, Jedi turned Sith Lord Skira Khan created the Brotherhood of Darkness, the final incarnation of the new Sith. In a bid to end Sith infighting, he made the new Sith more like the Jedi. Under Khan's Brotherhood, all Sith Lords were equals, with none allowed to claim the titles of Darth or Dark Lord. Darth Bane considered this to be nothing short of disgusting. As he saw it, the Sith had completely lost their way under the Brotherhood of Darkness. They had forgotten that the dark side was about the eternal pursuit of ultimate power, so that the strongest may always rule. To declare all Sith Lords equal was to abandon the very nature of the Sith. Per the last line of their code, the Sith were supposed to use the Force to free themselves from all restrictions, and yet Khan's followers were willingly placing restrictions on themselves. Khan's Brotherhood was not Sith, but just a dark reflection of the Jedi Order. The Sith had become the very thing they hated, though only Bane could see it. At the time, Bane knew that the new Sith had been a disgrace to the dark side before Khan as well. For 1,000 years, the Sith had hamstrung themselves at every turn with constant infighting. Many great and powerful Sith Lords had arisen during the New Sith Wars, but many of them had been killed by their own apprentices, weaker Sith who banded together to take down stronger opponents. Bane came to understand that multiple apprentices would eventually result in weaker Sith Lords due to the power-hungry nature of the Sith. The Sith, then, were caught between a rock and a hard place. Either they betrayed their very nature, or they betrayed each other and weakened the Sith as a whole. This observation led Bane to develop the core doctrine of his take on Sith ideology, that the dark side of the Force was like venom. The more vessels the dark side was split between, the more diluted it became. For it to be at its most potent, the dark side would have to be concentrated in as few beings as possible. Thus, the rule of two was born. Henceforth, the Sith would only have a master to embody the strength of the dark side and an apprentice to ensure that strength only grew. This reform solved the problem that had plagued the new Sith. The treachery that Lord Khan tried to prevent was ultimately an essential part of who the Sith were. It was just a way of the dark side. The real problem the Sith had been facing was that this treachery was making them weaker. Under the rule of two, however, treachery would make the Sith stronger. In theory, since there would only ever be two Sith Lords, only the stronger of the two could ever kill the other. If a master killed their apprentice, then the apprentice was too weak to be a master. If an apprentice killed their master, they would have surpassed their master and deserved the title of Dark Lord. Thus, with every generation of Sith came a new betrayal, and with each betrayal, the Sith grew stronger. This was the only way the Sith could exist without eventually destroying themselves. Any more than two Sith would eventually result in weaker Sith banding together to take down stronger Sith, as had been commonplace during the New Sith Wars, and in that manner, the Sith would just grow weaker until they were destroyed. Having two Sith instead of an army wasn't just the best way of running a Sith Order, it was the only way to run a Sith Order. Of course, the rule of two meant that the Sith would never again have the numbers to openly challenge the Republic or Jedi as they had during the Sith Wars. But this didn't bother Darth Bane. In his studies, he had learned that armies of Sith weren't the ticket to victory that many fans seemed to think they were. All Sith armies, from the Massassi hordes of the original Sith Empire to Darth Vitiat's endless fleet to the Brotherhood of Darkness, had been soundly defeated. What's more, every last Sith army in galactic history was defeated as a result of one Sith turning on another. The first Sith Empire fell because Ludo Kresh and Naga Sadow destroyed the last of the Sith's military might in a civil war. Exar Kun was betrayed by his apprentice, Darth Malak was betrayed by his former master, Darth Vitiat was betrayed by everyone around him and was defeated when they all united against him. The new Sith, of course, were betrayed by Darth Bane. As we mentioned earlier, these betrayals were a natural consequence of Sith ideology. Thus, Sith empires were always doomed to fall before they could attain total victory. Even though the Jedi abhorred violence, war was ironically something they were just better at than the Sith, as victory in war requires unity, which armies of the Sith could never have. However, a Sith order that worked in secrecy could prevail over the Jedi without fighting a single battle. Throughout galactic history, the Sith had always succeeded the most when they had worked from the shadows. Bane's Sith Order would follow the same example, knowing it would lead them to victory. For a time, the unopposed light of the Jedi would shine more brightly than ever before. The brightest light casts the darkest shadow, however, and Bane knew that, in time, the shadow of the Sith would be strong enough to snuff out the very light that cast it. When it did, the Sith would finally rule the galaxy, and for the first time in galactic history, they would rule without meaningful opposition, at least for a while. So, that's why the Rule of Two gave the Sith a victory that entire armies of Darksiders could only have ever dreamed of. But what do you think? Do you have a new appreciation for Darth Bane? Would you like to see a full video about him and his life? Let us know all that and more in the comment section below. And as always guys, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next video.